Hello YouTube, I'm your Huckleberry, and this is the Spyderco Caly 3 Sprint Run with the green G10 scales and the HAP 40 SUS 410 blade steel. And some measurements for you. We're looking at 7 inches overall with a 3-inch blade length, 0.12 inch blade thickness. As I mentioned earlier, this is the HAP 40 SUS 410 blade steel. It is a drop point, but kind of that leaf-shaped drop point that Spyderco favors. And it does have a full flat grind with a satin finish on the blade there. It is a lockback with stainless steel liners and G10, green G10 scales here. It is set up for right hand or left hand tip up carry, and it is made in Japan. All right, let's get a weight on this guy with the AccuWeight scale of mine. All right, there we go, zeroed out, and 3.1 ounces. And I will just go ahead and mention that this is a full ounce less than what it says on the Blade HQ website when it comes to weight. And so I did check my scale to make sure that it was calibrated, and I weighed some knives that I know the weight of, and it checked out. So I mean, I will tell you that it feels more like a 4.1 ounce knife, but I mean, it's called AccuWeight. It's an AccuWeight scale. It's accurate. I mean, it's right there in the name. So we'll go with that. Okay, let's do some size comparisons, shall we? Here it is against the Kershaw Link. And as you can tell there, that is going to be about the same size. They compare very favorably in terms of overall length and blade length. Feel in hand, the Kershaw is going to be lighter, so they do feel a little bit different in hand, but in terms of overall length and blade length and everything, the Kershaw is about spot on. Let's look at it against another Spyderco, the Paramilitary 2, and the PM2 is going to be quite a bit larger in just about every dimension: weight, blade length, overall length, girthiness, which is what I call it. The PM2 is just a much, not a much, but it is a larger, more robust knife. If you want to look at it against a much larger knife, let's look at it against the Civivi Paraxis. This has a 3-inch blade length. This has a 3.75 inch blade length. And it's bigger in just about every dimension: overall length, blade length, girth, weight, everything. The Paraxis is quite a larger knife. And okay, sure, how about this one? How about this guy? Here it is against the CRKT Ruger Incendiary. And again, as you can see there, that actually, in terms of overall length and blade length and everything, that compares pretty favorably. The Incendiary is going to be quite a bit weightier and thicker, T-H-I-C-C, thick. But in terms of overall length and blade length, pretty favorable. Okay, so let's get into the pros and cons of the Caly 3 from Spyderco. The first pro there, it has the typically good fit and finish of most Spydercos. It does feel good, and there are no hot spots. Everything is well rounded, well chamfered, no problems there. Feels good in hand. Clip is not a problem. Nothing. The typically good fit and finish that we have come to expect from Spyderco. It does have the stainless steel liners are milled. I don't know if you can really see. Yeah, you can see there's a lot of little holes there. And so they're milled out quite a bit, actually. which probably helps in the weight. If those were full still liners, this guy would be a little chunky. But the still liners are milled out quite a bit, which I always like to see. It does have Spyderco's wire clip, which, you know, for my money is probably about the best clip you can get. I love the wire clip. They could put the wire clip on, you know, just about everything and I'd be okay with it, because it's just a good functional clip. It loops over, carries, you know, nicely in the pocket. Just, you know, doesn't get in the way, unobtrusive, doesn't cause a hot spot. It's really nice. I really like Spyderco's wire clips, and this is no exception. It has the nice wire clip. It does have good jimping both on top and underneath the blade, which is good. It really allows you to lock in when you choke up, to get in there and really have good control when you're doing some detail work there. I always like when you have kind of this, you know, larger, you know, choil here. I always do like when they put jimping on the underneath as well, because it just really allows you to lock in good there. Excuse me, guys. Okay, I do like the HAP 40 laminated SUS 410 steel. I think that's a very interesting steel. It's you know, it's supposed to be very corrosion resistant. You know, it's plenty sharp. It takes an edge pretty well, holds an edge pretty well. I do like this steel on this sprint run. I also really like the green oh my goodness, green G10 scales there. I like that because it's an interesting green. It's kind of it's not your basic, you know, OD green or, you know, an olive green of any kind. It's kind of more of a British racing green, which I really like. A deeper, maybe more forest green, perhaps you would call it. Whatever it is, it's a nice green. I really like this green. It's a little bit different green than what you normally see on pocket knives, and so I like the green G10 scales there that they use for this sprint run. It does have good access to the Spidey hole there. As you can see, you know, you got the full hole showing there, and it is easy to access and manipulate and use. So that's always good. The Spidey hole on this one is, sometimes you'll get sharp edges on the inside of that Spidey hole. That's not the case with this one. This one has been well chamfered, and there are no sharp edges. Feels really nice to use. No problem there. And now let's look at some of the negatives. It is a lockback. And I know this is just a personal thing. I'm just not a big fan of lockback knives, because that means that this is not a fidget knife in any sense of the word. You know, you can't even really flick it open. And that's just, you know, kind of an inherent part of a lockback. You know, to access the lock, you have to do this. And if that was free dropping and you did this, well, you got big problems, don't you? So it really can't be free dropping, because you'd be slamming that sharp edge of the blade into your hand, which is never good. And so it's not an action showpiece. And not every knife has to be an action showpiece, but, you know, I'm a fidget guy. I like to fidget with my knives, and this is just not one that you're going to be able to fidget with. It is a really good working knife. You know, the lockback is a good, strong, solid working knife. It's worked for the Buck 110 for however many hundreds of years that knife has seemingly been around. But you know, the lockback is a time and proven locking system, but it's just not one for me. And I know that's more of a personal thing, but you know, this is my personal channel, so you get my personal opinions. And to me, I'm just not a huge fan of a lockback. I mean, it's not stiff, it's easy to access, it's easy to close, all those good things. It's a well-executed lockback, but I'm just not a huge fan of a lockback. You cannot disassemble this knife. As you can see there, those are pins. It is pin shut. There's no way to unscrew those. They are there. You can adjust the pivot as you can see there. But there will be no taking this knife apart, which, you know, I never like. How are you supposed to? Knives are a tool, and tools have to be maintained. You're not allowing me to maintain my tool when you don't allow me to take it apart. So that's something that's, you know, I never like to see. I never like to see a knife being pinned shut. And I know, you know, most traditionals are that way. And I do like traditional knives, but to me, that's just a whole different animal. You're talking, you know, tomato there. I mean, well, not tomato, because that means the same thing. But you're talking two different things there. Apples and oranges. That's what I was trying to say. Apples and oranges. When you're talking about traditional knives versus, you know, what's supposed to be a modern folder. And so I don't like pin construction. And the last thing that's a negative, and it's the biggest thing to me, are the ergonomics of this little guy are a little funky for me. Because there's really only one way to hold this knife and get a good grip, and that's if you're all the way choked up. You know, if you got your pointer finger here, your thumb back there, and, you know, in that way, it's a full 4-finger knife and it feels pretty good. But, you know, I don't always want to have to completely choke up on my knife. Sometimes I want to be able just to hold it back here and cut open a box real quick or whatever. But when you do that, it's, you know, it then becomes pretty much, for me with my extra large hands, granted, it does become kind of a 3-finger knife when you put it in the traditional saber grip. And there you go in the hammer grip there. But I'm not a fan, because really the only way that this knife feels good for me anyway, like I said, with my large hands, is if I'm all the way choked up, all the way up here. And I like having this option, and they've done it right with the jimping and everything else. It's comfortable this way. And I like having this option, but that's exactly what I want it to be, is an option. I don't want it to have to be a necessity. And with this design, with this kind of finger choil here, it pretty much makes it, in order for it to be very comfortable, it makes it a necessity and not an option. And that's just something that I'm just not a super fan of. But, you know, again, that's just me. One point of reference. So, but other than that, like I said, your typical great Spyderco fit and finish, a great steel, a cool color of G10. It does have a lot going for it. When this guy was for sale, like I said, it's a sprint run, as Spyderco is wont to do. They like to make sprint runs of things. This was a sprint run, and when it was on sale, it was $128.97. Now, depending on the condition of your Caly 3, in this particular sprint run, you're probably not going to get it for that much. If you see one for sale, it's probably going to be, I looked around just to get a good idea of what they're selling for these days, and you're probably going to be looking more in the $170 range is what I saw a lot of them going for. Now, granted, that was in really good condition with box and all that good stuff. So, you know, keep that in mind. But, you know, most of them were going, you know, some people were asking like $220, although I didn't see many sold for that price. There were people asking that. What I saw several of them sold for was in the $170 range, 170, 175, around there. So that's probably, if you want one, if you like the Caly 3 and you want one in the HAP 40 sprint run, you're probably going to be looking at paying around $175, let's say, for it. And it was $128 when it, you know, released. But of course, you know, sprint run, they're not making any more of them. So it's about supply and demand, right? There is no more supply, and if you have demand, you're going to have to pay the upcharge. But, you know, it's not a ridiculous upcharge. You know, 170, we're talking 50 more bucks, thereabouts, for a sprint run that's not going to be made anymore. So, I mean, it's not terrible, but it's there. Just be aware of that. Okay, guys, that's going to do it for this review here. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs down. If you disagree with me on some of the points of the Caly 3, go ahead and let me know what you think down below, and we can discuss it. I love reading your comments and getting back to you. So please go ahead, let them fly. I'm a very polite guy. Don't be afraid. I will respond. And whatever you do, go ahead and hit that subscribe and that notification bell so that you will be notified each and every time that I release a new video. And because if you didn't like this one, I have a lot of videos of knives and other gear coming up, and I'm sure we will run across something that you will enjoy. So, thank you very much for watching. I will catch you on the next one. Goodbye.